And we are live, folks. Welcome to episode 3439 of the Survival Podcast. If you are tracking it as a Bitcoin breakout episode, I believe today is episode 47 of the Bitcoin breakout from TSP. And I have a really cool dude, Tomek K. He will be on with us in just a bit. He works with Alby. He also is involved with some other really cool stuff like Bitcoin films and some guerrilla activism stuff and Bitcoin culture. And this is just going to be an awesome interview. Even those of you that are not fully orange pilled yet, I think you'll gain from it because this is a very eclectic group. I was talking to Tomek about that before we went live, and he was like, "Is it all survival people?" I'm like, "No, it's all over the map." But one thing we have in common is this concept of agorism and libertarianism, like the flag behind me. So I think you'll get something out of that, even if you're not fully on board with Bitcoin yet. Now, let's go ahead before we bring Tomek on and go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. Sponsor of the day number one today is Jeff the Berkey Guy Gleason, available at usaberkeyfilters.com. I think that you really should be drinking the cleanest and best water that you can. I think the system for that should be one that can't really fail because it has no moving parts. That's a Berkey all day long. Jeff was a sponsor of the show very early in the days. He was gone for a couple of years. He's back again. Some people said, "Can you buy Berkey?" Yes, you can. But I tried to buy some stuff there, and it would get on the wait list with Jeff because some of the stuff is in short supply right now. But you don't want to buy your Berkey stuff from some random clown. Go to the original Berkey guy himself, Jeff the Berkey Guy Gleason. Next up, what are you going to do with your money beyond the money that you're dropping into Bitcoin and stacking Bitcoin? Well, you're probably going to want to invest at least some of it into some other places. And you want to check out something called the Wealth Studying Podcast with John Pugliano. John's been part of our community since about 2010, serves on our expert council. He's one of us. He's actually a prepper just like us guys. He's all into the gardening and stuff. He's a ham radio operator. He's just a really great dude, and he's just a servant to our community in so many ways. You want to check out his podcast. It's completely free. It's short. It's 15, 20 minutes an episode, a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's only one a week. Subscribe, check him out. He's an awesome dude. He's an excellent investment manager as well. I'll just say that I would trust him with my money, so that means that I am comfortable telling you you could trust him with yours. With that, let's go ahead and bring our special guest on today, Tomek. Tomek, welcome to the Survival Podcast, man.
Hey, everyone. How are you? Cheers from Poland.
I was going to say, I'm glad you're here, man, and all the way from Poland. So I know there was a pretty good-sized time differential there, so it's probably pretty late in the day for you. So thank you for taking the time to be with us here today, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and all of you guys watching us.
Absolutely. So let's start off with, instead of digging into, Alby and some of the other stuff, how did you personally discover Bitcoin? Like when and what hooked you and got you involved at a level beyond just being a sat stacker?
Mm-hmm. Well, Bitcoin has been on radar quite early because since my teenage years, I was like a libertarian activist over here in Poland. So naturally, I got to hear something about there is this Americans are using this libertarian money and you can buy some drugs with it or something. And it's actually something that they were predicting, and Hayek was writing about it. And yeah, sure. I was maybe 21 and I didn't grasp it fully. But I was much into developing my knowledge about libertarianism, Ayn Rand's objectivism, and promoting these ideas. I got my NGO and did various activities over here in Poland to promote radical free market and capitalism. And doing these various activities, political actions or sport tournaments or conferences, educational programs, I kind of got a little bit disappointed that neither worked, and also also pandemic. But even before pandemic hit, I didn't see that people actually took much action towards liberty other than just talking about. I was just disappointed with libertarian movement over here. I don't know how it's back there, but and I thought, okay, why we are not utilizing Bitcoin that much? It looks like it's a libertarian tool, right? And it's still there. It works, and maybe this is something practical for liberty. So it was around 2019, I think. I invited some speakers. I want to have Bitcoin at my conference. It's called Weekend of Capitalism. And I invited some Bitcoin speakers, and they told me, hey, you should bring this Saifeddin Ammous. He wrote this book, Bitcoin Standard. So I looked into book, and with a friend who has this publishing house in Poland, Freedom Publishing, we published, he arranged translation, and he published the Bitcoin Standard in Polish. So also, I was then like falling down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And yeah, then like pandemic came and also confirmed some of the stuff I learned. Yeah, and I'm like a Bitcoiner now, kind of fully into it. My career also oriented towards like this Bitcoin activism and working in Bitcoin.
I would say that I think that a lot of people have been sucked into the rabbit hole by the book, The Bitcoin Standard. I think that, and I think that if you really want a broad understanding, and this is for the audience, not so much for you, that the Bitcoin Standard plus the Fiat Standard by the same author, I think the two of those together give you an incredible picture of the world that we're in. And if you're not orange pilled, you might be after that. I mean, that might be all it takes for some people that are holdouts. There's a lot of holdouts, but we're really here for the people that are interested today. So can you kind of come at this before we get into Alby? You use a term on your app here, Bitcoin culture. I've actually never heard anybody put it that way. I've heard Bitcoin community. I actually really love the term Bitcoin culture. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know if I'm the one to define what is Bitcoin culture, but I think it's a phenomena that is already appearing in this community. This community is, of course, no older than 15 years old. So, right, we have now kind of cultural memes, kind of toposes, and like sets of values that resonate more in Bitcoin communities. And I think this is what we call Bitcoin culture. And we see it specifically and watch it in films, in Bitcoin films that are out there. And I'm like trying to watch everything that is out there. And of course, Bitcoin films is even younger concept than Bitcoin and Bitcoin culture. But this is where you see these things also being manifested. And we are also asking this question, what is Bitcoin film? Is this just film about Bitcoin, and do all the Bitcoin films and only Bitcoin films would be just flashing B letter and like Bitcoin talking about this asset? No, there is like some of the people in this space, they say that even Matrix is a Bitcoin film while there is no Bitcoin, and it was created before Bitcoin. So there is it's a discovery, right? But I think it's not nothing very new or original. There is something like a Bitcoin culture. There is something like Bitcoin film, which doesn't have to be about Bitcoin. It doesn't have to even include, this blockchain or decentralized money. But it's a I guess it's not very clearly defined yet. Maybe Saif is trying to advocate for meat-ary diet to be a part of Bitcoin culture, right? Some of us are, probably most of us agree that it's something about autonomy, independence, power of the small against state, some anti-systemic look, enlightened look after taking the orange pill on the world, that something is wrong with it, right? So I think that's why Matrix is also so much loved by Bitcoiners, because it represents values of Bitcoin culture. And I think we are seeing this culture emerges now. Of course, we have books like Bitcoin Standard, and it's book about Bitcoin. There is not that many books that are Bitcoin books, but not about Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean, and I'm gonna explain it kind of maybe in a weird way. I don't know how familiar you are with U.S. movies, being from Poland, but there's a very well-known movie. It came out a long, long time ago with Bruce Willis in it called Die Hard, and there's a whole debate: is it a Christmas movie? Well, there's no Christmas plot in it, but it takes place at Christmas time, and it has Christmas elements in it, and therefore there's a whole group of mostly guys that say it's a Christmas movie. And I think that's what you're saying. Like, if you look back to like the 1970s, there was a movie called Easy Rider, and there's a whole dialogue in it between two of the guys in the movie where they're sitting out in the desert, and he explains the way that, you're being controlled and what freedom really is. And that would be the kind of thing you're talking about, that there is an ethos in Bitcoin that is not just about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one expression of that ethos of freedom, of independence, of autonomy. And it's actually a really interesting rabbit hole, like a side tunnel in the rabbit hole to go down is, how I wonder how many people might get on board a little quicker with that messaging, because there's tons of people that love all of that. And then you're like, well, here's a tool for that. Well, I don't want a tool. It's going to go to zero or some other nonsense, and the Bitcoin obituaries keep growing. I think that's going to, I'm sure you're familiar with the Bitcoin obituaries at 99bitcoins.com, but I think that growth rate of that's going to slow down a lot now with some, a lot more mainstream adoption. I've always said with the ETFs, like one of the reasons I'm pro ETF existence, not necessarily buying it, but it existing, is when something's in the retirement accounts of teachers and cops and firefighters, the government doesn't mess with it anymore. Like that's a place, if you touch it, you get electrocuted.
I think you said something interesting about this culture being something that brings people to Bitcoin, like being something else that maybe people are not interested in technicals or infrastructure. I think that, yes, I agree in a sense, but even I think it's even more, because culture is this medium of like that, expressed with images, music, behaviors, traditions, of some values, of some virtues, of some outlook on the world, and it's probably invading minds of populace, of people, more than educational action or some propaganda action. I'm kind of agreeing with, as I mentioned, I'm like Ayn Rand's follower, and I think she also picked that medium to convey her message. And I think she even said that she became a writer because she thought that through culture, these ideas can be most effectively spread. And definitely look at cinema, right? What role is, except for like, of course, entertainment, etc., is cinema, education, social messaging? Is cinema, what role is it fulfilling in society, in the world? It's kind of preparing the world, what's coming ahead, what's coming next. And of course, there has to be some artist, visionary that creates this film, but without culture being before that, people will not follow. Similar was with internet. They, like in 90s, we had this email me, we had this there was this SMS movie. We had like this, it was not only infrastructure had to be built for internet to be adopted, but also it had to be presented as a good, positive thing in culture. Maybe no one did it, but it went in parallel to what was happening in the infrastructural level. And same, I think, we have with Bitcoin. And same, it's also with Bitcoin cinema. We need to prepare with Bitcoin films, with Bitcoin books, with Bitcoin stories, kind of prepare, show, accommodate the audience, accommodate viewers of your film with the world on Bitcoin, because it's going to be much more difficult to accept such change, coming from phone or some device that you don't understand if you have not seen it before in advertisement, in memes, in like general popular acceptance, right? Culture.
Yeah. Because I mean, what I've seen in movies and television series and stuff like this about Bitcoin up till now, if you leave out kind of the loose cultural association with freedom and liberty, but like when they actually mention it, it's all been mostly negative. It's been the drug guy is using it to launder money or some crap like that. But I think we'll see that change even in like mainstream cinema over time, because now the messaging is you should have this, right? Because rich people get richer if you have some now, if you have it in their form anyway. But this Bitcoin film, and I'll bring the website up again here. Is this like then a mix of like maybe some older movies that have the theme but are not really about Bitcoin and independent cinema? Like, what exactly is this initiative? And it is available, folks, and I've got it in the show notes as well at bitcoinfilmfest.com.
Yes, the initiative started as an event which we did in March last year in Warsaw, a Bitcoin Film Festival. So we gathered Bitcoin films that we knew exist, and then we watched, and they were good enough to show. We agreed with the cinema. We invited some European, mostly Bitcoiners, and we had quite a nice event. And it kind of put us in like the center of this Bitcoin cinema industry. This industry, of course, existed because many people were doing actually quite many, more than we expected. They were doing something about motion picture with Bitcoin, but there was nobody like in the middle, like us. So we like became kind of networking, media, info hub for Bitcoin cinema space. And yeah, we are running community. We are running Twitter, monitoring what's happening in Bitcoin films. We are promoting filmmakers. We are showing them at various conferences. We already been to a few, and we are organizing this main Bitcoin Film Festival in Warsaw, second edition now in April. But mainly, it's I think it's important what is happening behind the scenes, behind the kind of large screen, because there is actually quite nice and growing network of people in Bitcoin cinema, producers, actors, investors, and we will meet live in Warsaw, and people who love cinema. So if you guys want to come, please feel welcome. This is like our Hollywood on the orange pill side, and we are also trying to be there for the Hollywood industry, for the Fiat legacy classic cinema industry, because we already know about some people who kind of got orange pilled from like popular names, but they are like maybe not open yet about it, and they eventually would probably be, and there will be more of them. And some of them, they don't want to work anymore for Fiat industry. They are looking for people alike, right? This is it's not only films about Bitcoin, it's a Hollywood for the orange pilled, because we don't, it's not, as I said, it's not just films about Bitcoin. Let's make another Matrix. Let's make some film that opens eyes.
Yeah, let's make a Matrix
maybe
like
talks
the original,
about,
right? Let's make a Matrix like the original Matrix, not the freaking third one or the fourth one, the new one. Like the reboot was just awful, but the original Matrix, like that is a big. How many people that do like tropes and memes and stuff have taken clips from Matrix movies and used them as Bitcoin collateral? Like Guy Swan's done that to the extreme. Tons of people have, though. Like that's a perfect example of a movie that's a mainstream movie, and that usually I say comments and questions for the end, but this is actually a good place to bring this in. Crafty says, do you feel, and I think he misspelled it, but the Bitcoin culture is building tropes and stories that can relate to people at large, or are we causing Bitcoiners to isolate from the general public? I kind of think it's both, because we do kind of have an inner culture, and here's what I mean by it. Like, so I did a seminar series for a friend about 2 weeks ago where I was a presenter, and it had nothing to do with Bitcoin. It was about, my presentation was on composting, right? So that's as far away as you could probably get. And one of the people in the chat while I'm presenting on this board starts using certain terminology. And so I'm on the chat when I'm not talking, hitting the people up. And he was using terms like long time preference, right? And I don't remember the other, but he said one other thing. I'm like, dude is a Bitcoin. I said, so-and-so is a Bitcoiner in the chat. And he's like, absolutely. And so just by language, in a totally unrelated setting, we were immediately able to identify each other as Bitcoiners. And I think that can actually be, to some people, a bit of a turnoff. Like if you don't know about a certain subject and it's kind of interesting, but you don't know about it, and two guys are talking about it, you're like, oh, I'm going to listen. And they start speaking nerd for whatever the thing is. Like you're using terms and things you don't know, and they have like an insider language, you kind of tune out. But the other side of it is some of these things are universal and independent of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just an expression of them, like freedom and independence and autonomy. And I think so there's room for both, because we're not going to stop using our lingo, and we're not going to stop being proud of who we are, and we're not going to stop being cohesive. But I guess we have to balance that with being receptive so that you're not like the clique in school that nobody can get into, if that makes sense.
Like a sect. No,
yeah,
but I agree.
Like we're somewhere like a sect, right? Yeah.
But I can see that this is also kind of evolving, maturing. Bitcoin events are, more of them are trying not to be just about Bitcoin. Let's talk, right? First Bitcoin events, maybe Bitcoin were more about price. Then they decided, okay, we are not talking about price anymore. And they explore various niches, Nostr, etc. But some of them are like ours. We'll try not to talk about Bitcoin infrastructure. Of course, it's important, but it's not other guys do it better. So we talk only about Bitcoin culture and this Bitcoin values, because this is probably also something that could bring more people right in.
Yeah.
And I see this also in culture, that it's kind of evolving in a way that if you were checking some Bitcoin art 5 years ago, whether like some YouTube abstract art or some posters, graphic art, they were mostly, big letter and with some digital nice colors, things like bam, bam, whatever, Bitcoin art, like Bitcoin, here is Bitcoin. And it's a bit childish, but it's understandable because it's 9 years old asset, right? So it's a child still. And this art also is now probably it's in its teenage age, that we can see that, okay, this is like there is like maybe a bit of propaganda, right? Maybe it's too much in front of your eyes, but it's a romance story, or it's a science fiction that questions the role of individual in a society on a Bitcoin standard, right? So it's about something else, but I think it's talking more to newbies, to people from outside, because they are more interested in, most people are more interested in love, in doing sports, in role of people in a society than in a digital asset.
Correct.
So the more this art matures, the more probably inclusive it would look like, and less like a sect and niche and clique, because those art like with this digital B, and you come to such event and you see B. This looks more like a sect then, right?
I got you. Let's talk a little bit about Alby. So I've been a fan of Alby for a long time, but when I really saw like it becoming a killer utility was when Nostr surfaced, and I got on Nostr, and not only could I use Alby as my wallet to receive and send zaps, which for those that are on the audio version of this later on after the live stream's done, while he was talking, I went to the Bitcoin Film Fest, found their link to their Nostr profile, went to their Nostr profile, and zapped one of their posts for 55 sats because I just wanted to, right? And like there's a freedom in that, right? Like I just transferred a tiny, like a couple cents worth of value to an entity that I think is doing a good thing for a post that I thought was cool. And I was able to do that with such no real effort. Like that was easier than making a PayPal payment, right? Like I'm talking to you, interviewing you, and I'm doing this as a side function. And there is no one can get in the way of that transaction. So I didn't have to tell Alby really who I was, or KYC in, which is know your customer for those that don't know that term, or anything like that. I just installed a browser extension, signed up with it, used Alby to generate my Nostr keys. Now, again, we're starting to sound like we're talking nerd or something, but it's really easy. It's pushing a button. And then I manage my Nostr clients using Alby, at least when I'm in a browser. And now I have this ability to change value with people and do this over Lightning. So for those that were on the video and saw it, it's almost instantaneous. It's faster than a credit card transaction. Yes. Alby is just awesome. How did you get linked with Alby?
Myself, I was a user. And one of my friends is my local Bitcoin Maxi friend with whom we are doing meetups. He is working for them as a UX designer, and they also were partners on Alby. Was also partners of the first Bitcoin Film Festival. So that's how we got in touch. I was attending the community calls, and we decided to collaborate. So I'm working at Alby now. And as you see, as you're saying, for those who don't know, Alby is. We have various products. It's a startup that started as an open source project of Alby extension, and extension is one of our main products. It's still evolving and now has many features, but it's basically your, or we call it your Bitcoin and Nostr companion for the web or on the web. So there are like this Bitcoin space of Bitcoin web apps is very quickly evolving recently, and there is many besides podcasting, there is many places where you can transfer value for meeting people, for watching people, for reading their stuff, for watching their stuff, for whatever you could imagine. There are places, platforms popping up every week, new ones that you can easily use with value for value monetization model. And it's a new economy enabled by smooth payments by Lightning Bitcoin. And that's what Alby uses. Alby also provides a Lightning wallet, so it lets you very easily, with easy click, operate with various platforms. So it uses some type of protocols that communicate very easily for both programmers that build this website, Lightning network managed by Alby, and user that you can click and pay on for any reason, and with various innovative features. We are also trying to enable this innovation. So Alby is like a building block for developers on which other innovators can come and build. Okay, I want to build a podcasting app, or I want to build a Netflix but on streaming on Satoshi, and Alby is providing that tools to make it easier for developers and for users, because having this extension in your browser, it's really like having a companion that in a easy way lets you manage your sats.
Yeah, and it is really powerful that you can branch out into all these other things. Like I started to realize like all these different ways that you can use Alby. Like you can use it for value and use it to send value to people on, let's say, a podcasting 2.0 app like Fountain FM. And that's one example. And then the other thing that I've been really excited about is just how rapid the growth of Nostr clients has been, because I think there's an awful lot of people who they look at Nostr like a Twitter clone. They don't really understand what it really is. Like that was the first like killer app, I guess, that came out of Nostr, was we could make something like Twitter and we could all communicate with each other. We could DM, we could do all this stuff. But there is
like Bitcoin was for gamblers, right? At the beginning.
Yeah, Bitcoin was that you could go to Silk Road and buy dope and get it sent to your house. Like that's what it was, right? And it was like so much like, dude, you don't understand. That's not what Bitcoin is. That's a thing people are doing with Bitcoin. And Nostr's kind of like that same utility. Like there are sites now that are basically like the Substack version of a Nostr client. And we're seeing more and more stuff come out. And then Alby just kind of plugs in to all these things. And I think that, beyond Alby, that's the future, is to making this interoperability. So if I like Alby and you like Wallet of Satoshi, you use what you want, I'll use what I would. No one's like, I don't want your money because you use the wrong bank, right? So if you are your own bank, you should be able to decide what kind of banner you put over your bank.
And that's thanks not to Alby, but to all of the open source contributors to the ecosystem, and the fact that in Bitcoin ethos there is also I think there is a Bitcoin culture of software development where things are built meant to be interoperable and meant to be built upon, open sourced, verifiable. Alby extension is open source. You can see what's happening with your sats, who has the keys, we don't. And this fact that Fountain can very easily, whether you have wallet of Satoshi or Alby or another wallet, and this transaction can be done easily, is thanks to we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and there is maybe not even few giants, but many of little people that are coding this stuff, and they make WebLN, Nostr Wallet Connect, Bitcoin Connect, some of these interesting protocols that are not even Bitcoin anymore, but they are talking. They make computers talking to each other in an easy way that we don't have to think about. These developers can have very easy job to make them talk to each other, and they use Bitcoin. So yes, this is thanks to this Lightning open source Bitcoin community. These things are possible, and I think it's very slow to notice.
Yes,
but if you can imagine like humanity in year 2100, if you ask anyone on the street, they would tell you, oh yeah, we would be flying to, okay, if they are optimistic about future and no wars, but usually we think that there is like a development, we will be flying to Mars and the great tech, but they don't think that it wouldn't be possible if we wouldn't have sound money, healthy money, but also such money that would be as information, lightless, very easy to be programmed and used in such ways that we don't even know what these ways could be in the year 2100. The internet was also first. It was sold as first narration of internet, but it was like, it's like a newspaper, right? But on a screen.
Yeah.
Imagine how much more internet is now than a newspaper.
Yeah.
So same goes for Bitcoin. It's like gold, but in digital. But imagine how much more there can be. So we don't even know what innovation can be built. Yeah, fascinating, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me, I'm like in my 50s, right? So I talk like an old man now, but it seems like yesterday that I remember the beanheads on Good Morning America trying to figure out what internet was, like even what it was. And they were looking at an email address and they're like, what's that? It was the at symbol in an email. They couldn't understand. Like, these are like four people on a major network television show. And the internet was a thing by then, or else you wouldn't have had this conversation. Like, people were using it regular. I was using it at work. And they didn't even understand what it was. And I think there's a lot of people, like, when you listen that talk about Bitcoin and define it, and you go, that's not what Bitcoin is. And I think that's one of the things that I keep trying to reiterate to my audience who's like, I'm too late. Like, we're not. There's no late here. This is now if you snooze this year, I think you're really like one of the last major entry points, because, we were talking about the effect of ETF inflows and things like that. But then I look at it like translating it over to like Nostr and the different things that Alby plugs into. I don't think most people are grokking what we're seeing right now. We're seeing this evolution from platforms to protocols, from applications to clients, where all of this stuff becomes interoperable, and I choose what I see and who I talk to and who hears from me. And Elon Musk doesn't make that decision. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't make that decision. Jamie Dimon doesn't make that decision. I communicate with who I want. I exchange value with who I want. And all you can do if you don't like it is cry harder. And I think the more tools we build and the more interoperable those tools become, the more that becomes the case.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there are some comments. I saw somebody said that everyone in Nostr is using one app, one client. Yeah, I don't know how much about it. It would be nice to check some stats. If they look, iPhone users, I guess, use mostly Damus, but there is so many clients. I myself, I switch every day between like 3 or 4 to see if there is some update or which one is less painful to use, because some of them are, and that's normal. We have to get used. This is sorry, and of course, innovation on Nostr is growing. I agree with you, Jack. But if you take a look at the amount of users, there are some stats that are counting how many public keys with BIOS are posting. It's stagnating. It's like very low. It's like 20. I think there is only 25,000 weekly active users, so it's not much. But there is so many things, and working at Alby, I can see it. So many things are being built, and we are ready for next waves, I guess. Can't wait to see all of this various, new next generation Google Maps, or some link redirection tools, or some GitHubs that are built on decentralized tools that use a bit different protocol that is not so easy to censor. Maybe it's a bit slow today, but it has value attached. So I really like exploring Nostr, because I feel like this vibe of early internet. Early for me was like early 2000s. And visiting these strange websites, clicking links, having these strange pop-ups, things did not work, and you had to dig deep for content, but the content was gold. And now when I'm scrolling Twitter or Facebook, I feel bad with myself that I'm doing that. I'm not aware yet of it, but I feel like guilty for doing that. And this content is shit and it's advertisement. And then I go to Nostra, and even if these people are only writing good morning, I still feel better doing that, because I feel like I'm part of this. Something is cooking here, and I'm already here.
Yeah, and I mean, the Nostra activity is enough that you guys throttle entry to Alby now, and I'm going to venture that Nostr and Zapathons are probably part of that. Like, you guys can only grow and scale so fast. I run a Lightning node, and I started doing so primarily so that I would understand it. I'm completely comfortable using, for the amount that I'm moving around with Lightning, completely comfortable using someone else's node for that. But because I've done it and I understand balancing and stuff, I get why that can be an issue, like having the channels open and the balanced channels for receiving and sending. So there is a lot of activity there. But I think that you're right, that we're going to see things that haven't been built yet get built very rapidly. One of the ones I've been kind of forecasting is something that either will or needs to be built. I don't know if you're familiar. You mentioned maps, and this is what made me think of it. If you're familiar with Waze, I don't know if you guys use Waze in Europe or not, but Waze is a navigation app, just like the native map app on an iPhone. Well, you pull Waze up, and the difference is you put your destination you want to go in, and Waze has the ability for, I'm driving down the road, there's a wreck. I can hit a button, say there's a wreck there, and everybody else using that app knows that there's a hazard ahead and where it is. And then it's asking people going by, is it still there? And so they keep saying still there until it clears. And once enough people say it's cleared, they stop issuing the warning. But it's not just things like that, traffic jams and all. It's also like there's a cop there with a radar gun. So you're hauling ass down the highway 15 miles over the speed limit, and a half mile up ahead, you're getting a little whoopee light on your app screen that tells you there's a cop, so you slow down, you don't get a ticket. I'm like, man, with all of the confirmation, like you have confirmations and they're almost like Bitcoin, like after X number of confirmations, it's real. You could integrate Lightning into that. And when that happened to me, like the last trip I took to Tennessee, I got 3 of those warnings and I would have been popped all 3 times. And I would have totally, whoever initially ratted that cop out, $5, right? Whatever number of sats that is, I would have, avoiding a ticket and an encounter with law enforcement, hell, I'd give you $5. And I'm like, if you do that, basically you've created Fountain for driving. And I wonder how many things like that, because there's a book I read a long time ago, and you talk about how things relate to Bitcoin that aren't Bitcoin. It's called Celestine Prophecy. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin. And it's a series of insights in it. And one insight is that we as humans, and this was written around 1992, we as humans would evolve to a point where we are socially interacting to where, like, I would stop and ask you how to get somewhere. And when you told me, I would give you a tip or a tithe, right? I would give you a little bit of money because your information has value to me. And it wouldn't be like I owe you. You wouldn't do it because you expected it, but we would start to realize the value other humans have. And I'm like, that will never work. And the reason it won't work is if I'm sitting on the corner doing something and you ask me how to get to front street and I go down there, make a left and have a right, and you're there, you're going to be like, here's a buck. I'm going to be like, no, dude, I'm not going to, like, that's uncomfortable socially. But if I'm on a traffic app and I see somebody's trying to get there and I can see where they are because they've shared their location, and I can like drop a pin and say, this is where you're actually trying to get to, and that guy throws me a buck, I'm like, cool. And so when I start looking at how we exchange information online and how we exchange value that way, all of a sudden this prediction looks completely accurate, where the technology just wasn't there, but the guy got the concept right, if that makes sense.
I think you made a very nice description of an example of how infrastructure influences culture directly, right? You change the monetization, the way the things are monetized, the structure of value transfer, and it influences culture, how person behaves. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I really want to see that kind of development come. And people say, well, you want it, you do it. I'm like, I don't develop shit, right? We all have our wheelhouse, right? Like, that's not me. I'm not a code. I'm 51 years old. I'm not going to learn to code. Maybe my grandson will, right? Like, we all have our place that we fit in this ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit more about like some of the things you can do with Alby other than just link it to an Oster account?
So our 2 main products are Alby account, and Alby account is we run a node for you, and you have Lightning wallet, which you can access from your browser. You can use it on your phone as your progressive web app, and use it as a mobile app. It's and in any time you don't need app, you can log into your GetAlby.com page and use it as your Lightning wallet, right? It's for small amounts because it's a very good starting point on your journey to hopefully self-custody. So we also build tools that encourage people and make their journey to self-custody easier. And the main one is this extension. And with the extension, you can connect multiple wallets, multiple nodes that you run. It could be self-hosted node that you have it on your home, or you maybe rent one from some company, and you can connect it, plug into your computer, to your extension. You can have multiple Lightning wallets, and you can use them on Nostr. You can use them on some pages that use Lightning payments. So it's like an interface multi-tool to use Bitcoin on the web, right?
Yes.
And you also get your personal @GetAlby.com address. So unlike some wallets, they either don't give you, we run your Lightning address server for you, so you have one, right? Whether it's Jack Spirko at GetAlby.com, or you can also use it for your Nost identification, because we know that Nost has this NPUB16 by like long string that no one remembers, so you can identify yourself with some domain, and we also provide this address that you can use the same one for your Lightning address and for your Nost address, which makes it very easy to use Nost today in web. This Lightning address can be also used if you're a podcaster, so you can, or if you listen to podcasts, you can participate in value models and plug in your Alby account to various of podcast player apps or podcast distribution apps, and you can boost, you can zap. If you are watching this show, please zap or send boostagram with comments to Jack.
With Alby, I just typed that in. So if you put your Alby address in the notes of a video on YouTube, and someone watches that video and they have the Alby extension, if you're watching this live right now or after it's been recorded on YouTube, if you look up at your Alby extension in Chrome or Brave or whatever you use, you'll see the color has changed. It recognizes that there is that code there. And right now, if you want to send me 5 sats, 1 sat, like you're going to send me 10 sats, I'll pay attention, and put a message in there that says, Jack, you're a jackass. You can do that from a YouTube video in your browser right now. And that is, so, hey, they're trying to zap you, dude. They're saying,
I'm trying to post my address, but this
it might be some filtering from YouTube.
StreamYard doesn't let me.
Drop it in the private chat. Drop it in the private chat, and I'll do it for you. Because it's throttling you back because you don't have the cred to be able to put certain things in it.
That's true.
Yeah. So throw
is my link at GetAlby. Look how we have to walk around. It doesn't exist on Nostr, or maybe it does, but it has to be. It's not centralized. Relays can run this filtering, but then you can choose another layer relay, which is not filtering. So it's Tomek K GetAlby.com, but you have to for this trick to work, and it works on various websites: Twitter, YouTube, GitHub. If you put this bolt emoji in front of your GetAlby address, then it recognizes that you can tip this person. So in various ways, we are trying to encourage this value model in the internet. If you guys have more ideas how Alby could be utilized, we always encourage like feedback. We are trying to be very open with the community, because Alby started as a community effort, and we are very often listening to suggestions of features or any bug reports. Our users are kind of co-creating Alby. We are still figuring what Alby should be in the future, how it can position itself and sustain itself, right, business-wise, in this ever-changing Lightning environment, which is quite challenging. Running these nodes is not costless, right? And most of the users, they do not pay today for such services, but they have to realize that most of these ventures, these startups in Lightning space, are now sustained from money from investments. So they're getting some market, they're building tools, but those things are not costless. And Lightning users also should be aware that payment day is coming, that the small little fees would be included in such places as Alby, as most of the wallets. But we are also encouraging people to run their own node and see what effort it costs with terms of some stress.
I think that's a good
and
advice.
Some sats.
That's what I said. I ran a node so I would understand it. I didn't really need to. And I just wanted to understand how it works. So I have an appreciation for it. The way I ended up hooking up with your guys at Alby actually was I was on Nostr, and some guy was bitching because he ended up with some small fee that goes from routing nodes because he zapped himself by mistake, and he ended up like losing a sat or something. I don't know. And I'm like, what kind of whiny ass bitch are you? Like, and then Alby, whoever it was that posts on Nostr as Alby, was explaining how they don't really make a lot of money right now. And I'm like, y'all need to make some money. I zapped them like 10,000 sats instantly. I'm like, you're providing a service. And if you want to do everything on your own, you can, and you will find, like he's saying, it ain't free. It's not. First of all, you have to tie up capital because you have to, I don't like the word, but sort of stake capital on the Lightning Network. You have to convert on-chain to off-chain, and you put it there, and then that's your balancing liquidity between the channels, and that money is locked up until you close those channels. Then you have to take the time to balance. Like, once a certain amount is received, you have to push that liquidity back to the other side. That's also not free. It's not expensive, but it's not free, and time isn't free. And I agree with you that there needs to come a point where if we actually value something, we're willing to put some skin in the game. And if you look at the total number of users out there, it doesn't need to be a ton per person. But I would get far more out of taking, $10 a month or whatever it is and contributing it at whole to the Nostr, Alby, Lightning Wallet universe than I would by giving it to Elon Musk for a blue check. Way more, because like you said, we got little folks out there that are working hard. Like, I think one of the things people don't get, like we have in Bitcoin, we have BIPs, Bitcoin Improvement Protocols, and in Nostr, we have NIPs, Nostr Improvement Protocols. Anybody can write one of those. Then it's up to people that are running clients to decide, do I want to integrate that improvement into my client? Well, some of the things that are pretty much universally available across all these Nostr clients now, that's how they started out. One guy over here did it, and then people made it. And I think that we do need to say, like, people say they want things all the time, and then you say, well, here it is, it costs $10, and they're like, well, I don't want it anymore. So you never really wanted it, right? Like, there has to be a point where we understand that in order to exchange value, we need to give some of that value to the people that enable the exchange.
I'm trying to answer some of the comments on YouTube. I can also tell you that Alby extension is actually free to use, and it's open source, and you can plug into your node or any node of your choice and use it as you please. It stores your Nostr keys. It can store your seed phrase that you can use to sign on-chain transactions, liquid transactions, and some other features that most probably will be also encrypted with seed and with a similar way of using master key today. But it's totally client side, which meaning that Alby or any client that you use with Alby do not see your private keys. That's why it's also important when you are using Nostr, how you can use Nostr. These clients need to know need to sign events that they broadcast to the network, so they need to know your key, right? You need to give them this NSEC. This is your identity, and there is so many clients. Would you give your private identity to this beta clients that you are not sure who built? And so apparently you don't have to. You can use such tool as Alby, and there are a few other tools like this that you give, and it's client-based, which is running totally locally on your machine, and these keys are never sent to this server of your client or servers of Alby. And the extension or such tool is using your private key to sign events, and then the client is broadcasting them. So kind of, in a sense, your keys do not touch the internet. And whoever wants to try it, we are always very open to visit our GitHub. Find GetAlby on GitHub, and there is a code of the extension to verify, to suggest new improvements, fork it, build better Alby, and we are encouraging that.
Yeah, there's a good question. Maybe explain, because I know what you're saying, but maybe you can explain it better than me. Builder Castles says, and if you're running a Lightning node, then you can connect your Alby to it. Basically, you can run your own node through Alby, so you can use all these other features even though you're not using Alby's node. Is that the best way to explain it?
Yes, Alby, as I said, Alby has this account, which is, we give this getalby.com Lightning address with a Lightning wallet service, and it also Nostr address, and there is extension, and this extension can be plugged into the account or can be plugged into your node, to your Start 9 voltage, LND, whatever node. It can also plug into Blink wallet, so you don't have to be self-custodial if you don't have Alby to use the extension and use your sats on the web.
And just the reason you're seeing so much, Start 9 is a sponsor of the show, so a lot of people in the audience.
All right.
Start9. That's why they're asking
Right.
it so much about Start9. All of this really can be summed up in some ways as guerrilla activism, and that was a term that's on your application to be on the show. Can you kind of talk about guerrilla activism a little bit and how it relates to Alby, Bitcoin, everything we're talking about today?
I don't think I've been asked this question before, so I don't have the answer. I think, as I mentioned, in my libertarian activist career, we did like a soccer tournament, which was invisible leg of a free market. Yes, invisible leg of free market championship, right? And so we're just playing soccer. It's not as advocating for lower taxes, but we are playing soccer, football as we call it, with Ayn Rand T-shirts or Ludwig von Mises, and we are waving some laissez-faire Gadsden flags, etc. So I think it's not a standard way to do activism, but it's kind of building a good PR for this movement, for people around. Oh, these guys are playing fun and they're advocate for free market. We built bar in Warsaw. It's called Freedom Lounge. Once we kind of hacked the website of a Polish, a largest bookstore to vote for Fountainhead by Ayn Rand as a public choice. So we got it into 6th place. Well, of course, not that many people are reading that, unfortunately. So this type of various activities that, they give me fun. Doing some graffiti with laissez-faire slogans, or going. We did this libertarian chess championship. We did Laissez-Fest summer festival. So it was 200 people in a forest, yachting, and then concert in the night. I think this, it's fun, leisure, but it's when it does good PR for laissez-faire ideology, for Bitcoin, for freedom, I can call it's an activism. So I have at least some, good conscience that I do something for society.
It's kind of an umbrella term to put it all under. And Mike C here is saying it's kind of like guerrilla gardening, plant seeds in public ground. And so we have a lot of people in our audience that are guerrilla gardeners. They just, we just had a gal on named Blue Lotus from the Vigilantes, they call themselves, right? And their whole slogan is plants don't need permission, and neither do you, right? And
nice.
I love that. And that really is I did not make the connection when I had her on to Bitcoin culture, as you call it, but that's really exactly what Bitcoin's all about. If you use a bank, and I have a bank, I mean, most people do, because I have a lot of my life that's still in, I guess, the mainstream world. But it's permission based. My bank can decide, Jack Spirko doesn't need a bank account here anymore, and go, we're locking your account. And then maybe in 6 months, I'll get my money, right? And they give it to me in a check. And if I can't get another bank account, I have a piece of paper that's pretty much worthless, because I need a bank to use the check that was my own money. But Bitcoin is permissionless, in that it's geographically independent. If I decided I'm done with America, I'm going to go live in Tasmania, I don't know, whatever. Well, I got to get my money out of the United States to Tasmania. If I go to Tasmania, my Bitcoin's with me wherever I go. It's in my head. It's 12 words. It's a record. It's an app. It's whatever I want it to be. But what it isn't is something that somebody else can say, no, you can't have that, or no, you can't spend it right now, or no, you can't spend it on this thing. Because I've noticed that as well. Bitcoin's a perfect example. When I first started buying Bitcoin, I could just take my bank debit card and go to Coinbase. That's how long ago this is. And stick my credit card number in and buy Bitcoin with my bank debit card on Coinbase instantly. And it was done. And one day I went to do that and do a routine buy, and it was we don't take this form of payment anymore. And it turned out it wasn't Coinbase; it was the bank decided they didn't want Bitcoin transactions anymore. So
I had same issue. Yes,
they could do it with ammunition. They could do it with guns. They could do it with anything they don't like. They can turn on, because people are if you get CBDCs, they'll be doing this. They do this now. It's just you still have cash as an option and some other ways you can work around it. But right now, there are a whole list of things, and I see it posted all the time, Nostr, Twitter, or X, I guess. My bank just sent me this letter, and it's all these things they're not going to allow purchases of. Where Bitcoin's I don't give a shit what you do with me. I'm yours, boss. You tell me where to go, and I'll go there.
I don't even know where to refer. Yes, I see you.
Yeah, man.
It's I guess also you're in the US, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can feel there is a bit different American spirit of
Yeah,
like
we're pretty much
independence and freedom.
we are the don't give a fuck nation. Like we don't care what you like, we don't care what you want. We're gonna do our own thing. There's a picture, and it looks like a very like proper family. It looks like it's from England, and like all the kids are dressed in nice suits and everything. And you know, like the mom is England, and the dad is Ireland, and the little girl is Canada, and then it's Scotland, and then there's a little girl off to the side. And she's got like a biker jacket on and like a bandana on her head. It's like United States. And that is, and I think that's true. And it's also mythology, depending on where you are. I live in Texas. We really don't give a shit. Like you mentioned COVID, we just didn't. Like we had lockdowns and we had mandates and all. And like at least half of us just said, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go out and go wherever I want. I'm going to go in here. You walk in the store, sir, would you like a mask? No, I have one. And you just keep going. And eventually our governor basically like rescinded all the restrictions, mainly because nobody was following them. And that could have been everywhere. But places like New York, New Jersey, California, I don't even consider those places America anymore. I mean, they just don't act like America anymore. And so I think...
What do you think it's happening there in a longer run, like 10 years?
I don't know if they got 10 years before they're completely down the toilet. I mean, I don't know how much mainly you pay attention to your backyard. So, and I mean everybody, not you personally. But like in California right now, we have places where there's literally homeless people shitting on the entryway to a business. And if that business owner goes out there and pushes that guy off while he's taking a deuce, the cops will come and harass the business owner, but they won't do anything to the homeless guy crapping on. Like, I don't know how you even function when you've gone that far down. So I've been telling people, like, and it's not really the states. California's a huge state, right? It's San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, New York City, Chicago, Illinois. Like, I call these flashpoint cities, and my advice is get out. Get away from them. You know, at least 50 miles outside of the city limits of these cities, because they seem to me like a recipe for absolute disaster. And I'm not so much worried about like the apocalyptic TV show type version. What I'm saying is, if you have a business in Los Angeles or San Francisco right now, all you're having is the underlying value of your business completely eroded and destroyed. And you only have a limited amount of time before you can extract yourself and take some of it with you before it becomes like stranded capital and you can't get it out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, it cannot be stranded with Bitcoin.
Exactly. But you're building your inventory, your employees, your goodwill, your brand, right? All of that can end up very localized and contained and trapped. And if the city's value is going down, then everything in the city's value is also being traded. I mean it more like that. But yeah, at least if you take all your surplus capital and sweep it into Bitcoin when you leave, because there's even talk now, and I don't know how they would ever get it done because of the structure of U.S. government right now anyway, but there's taxes on people when they like renounce citizenship and leave a country sometimes, like a portion of their wealth is seized. And there's talk in some of these states, because they have such an outflow, because moving from Texas to California is pack your shit up and leave. There's no application. We're a republic. And so you can just move to any one of the 50 states. Well, that is actually starting to really hurt some of these states that are behaving stupidly, because it's not like their population is going to zero or anything, but their productive people are leaving. Like right now, if you want to rent a U-Haul truck, which is a moving truck, right? And you want to drive that U-Haul from Los Angeles to Dallas one way, it will cost you about $3,000 to $4,000. If you want to rent it and go from Dallas to LA, it's like $1,500, because they know it's coming back. They know when it goes to Texas, it's never coming back. But if it goes to California,
but what they tax it, or
no?
Or
it's just that's
price.
That's what the company charges to rent the truck in a one-way move, because when they let you take that truck from LA to Dallas, getting that truck back to LA or getting some exchange done with another location is difficult because the flow is all out. But if you're going from Dallas to LA, they'll cut your rate because you're doing them a favor. They've got a truck that needs to go back there. You see what I mean? Like, that's how massive the exodus is. And it's been that way for years.
So, and do they update later this number of electorals that they get on elections, each state?
Yeah, and that's being polluted because this is like a U.S. civics lesson. Like, so we have electoral votes and we have representatives based on population. So they're letting all these illegal aliens come in. And then even though they don't get to vote, at least not yet, at least in national elections, they're part of the population.
Okay.
So there's some of that outflow being replaced. The damage to the state there is some of that. There have been some congressional seats lost and stuff. But the damage really being done, in my opinion, is your entrepreneurs, your small business owners, your large business owners, like the people that employ people, that pay taxes, that actually get shit done. They're the first people to leave. They pissed off Musk in California, and he just moved Tesla to freaking Texas. Like, okay, I'm just not gonna, like, you're gonna shut my business down because of a virus. Okay, I'm gonna go to Texas. And I'm not a huge fan of Elon, but man, I respect the hell out of that decision. And that's one of the advantages. We're a big country with a lot of states, and states have individual sovereignty. Like I said, we're off the Bitcoin thing, but it's an interesting discussion because I don't think we have enough of these discussions, like, so people understand each other around the world. Like, your whole world can change by moving one state to another in our country. Like, there's no income tax in Texas at the state level. So I pay federal income tax, but I pay no state income tax on my money or my business's income.
How much different would it be if you would live in Orange County?
If I lived in California, I would pay, I believe, 13% personal income tax. And I pay 0.
Okay. And there is some other difference. Taxes. There are some, there is. And that's quite a lot.
0. There's states that have an income tax of 2%. There's some that are really, really high. Arkansas, like, if you don't make much money, you pay like 2%. But if you max it out, you pay like 8.5%. It's a graduated income tax. But if you're in Texas, you pay 0. Tennessee is 0. Florida is 0. I think there's like a good 5 or 6 states that have 0 personal income tax, and several have 0 corporate income tax.
Mm-hmm.
So and then the regulatory environment, right? Like, Musk was pissed that he just couldn't open his factory. It was down to that. It was like, I can't go back to work. No, you're not essential. Okay, well, fine. Fuck you. I'm going to leave. And that's something that I think that a lot of people in this country fail to realize, that they have that capability, like, or they make a reason that they can't move. And it's like, you could move. In some cases, if you're 50 miles from a state line, you might be able to move 60 miles and change your entire financial and, from a business standpoint, your operational outlook. That's just something that people, and that, to me, doesn't that sound a little bit like Bitcoin, in that you can take your capital with you when you go?
You also in US have it's a culture again, and probably infrastructure incentivize that. You have a different culture of moving.
Yeah,
it's not so common here. Like when your parents lived somewhere, their grandparents also lived there, and their grandparents, mostly in Europe. And when I know some Americans, they are like, "Oh yeah, my mother came from LA, and then we moved, and then 6 years later we moved to Florida." And
we are fluid, and we're also. I think part of that is that we're a large country, and that the kid goes to college, gets a degree in something they really want to pursue, and then looks around, and there's not much opportunity where they're from. But some company in Tallahassee or some company in Chicago will hire them. So I think that generates a lot of movement as well. And I think that just the size of the country does too, because there's a huge difference. Like, some people go on vacation to France, for instance, and they're like, I love France. So they move to France. They could be from anywhere in the world because they love the difference in the culture and the way people act. Well, if you're in the United States, and I promise you, if you're in Florida versus Oregon, there's a huge difference in not just money, but in the culture. But you don't need to apply for immigration. You can the fact that you can just go. I'm not sure exactly how the EU works that way. Like, can I just, if I'm in an EU country, can I just go to another EU country and live? Or is it just for I don't know how that works.
Well, usually it depends on your visa that you're getting. You as American, you most probably have like 180 or 90 days to be in Europe and then come back to be back again. But once you're like in this Schengen zone, which is
Yeah.
a bit separate agreement than European Union, once you are there, you can travel between countries. In most cases, some people they have only permission to visit one country from some third world country. I'm not sure if US is already third world or not yet. If it's joining us in Poland. But there is no checks on borders. I mean, yes, in certain cases, when there is some immigrant crisis in Germany,
Yeah.
Poland, or there is some,
But here's what I
you
mean.
know,
Let's say I was a French citizen, grew up, born and raised in France. I can go straight to Germany now, no problem. I get that. I can drive there. Can I buy a house, start a business, and live in Germany without doing anything? Like just do it?
there is many people who just live there and nobody checks when did you enter because there is
Okay.
no border checks, so nobody knows when did you enter. But if you, of course, if you buy a house, if you run a business, they would rather need from you some residency permit or something, right?
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like, so here, like, if I went from Florida to Georgia or to Texas, I just go and I do whatever I want. And anything that I would have to fill out, like, is starting a business, the person that was born and raised in Texas would have to do the same thing. It's not like because I came from Florida, I have to change my driver's license. That's about it. It's, I don't know, we're kind of off track there, but I think it's an interesting discussion about the difference in, because we don't think about that enough, I don't think. And so we judge people's statements without understanding their situation. And I think that's a huge mistake. And that's true within the United States. Like
what statements?
I don't know, like when the pandemic was going on, like people telling other people, like, well, why'd you get a vaccine? Well, if that person happened to work in a state that mandated it for certain classes of employment, they maybe didn't do it because they submitted to the authority in a direct way. Like I did it because I was told. They did it because they made a decision about, do I get to keep my job or not? That I had 18 years in and I'm 2 years from retirement. And a person in a state where that didn't happen has no frame of reference that person was even in that situation. They can't conceive of it because they didn't see it or experience it. And I think that that's just one example. There's many things like that where you see a person say a thing, do a thing, act in a certain way, and maybe they're even wrong, but you don't understand the dynamics that made them make that choice. It wasn't necessarily something they wanted to do.
Maybe I don't think I judge people based on this because as you're saying, this is so super nuanced topic. And,
I'm more general.
Adding some circumstances, yeah.
I'm more general. You and I, maybe we think, but the average person doesn't think. Like thinking is not really popular in the world right now. And I think that as thinking gets more popular, we'll get more Bitcoiners to kind of bring it back around. Because if you think, the more you think, the more you start to realize like the problem, and then you look for the solution. And you look for the thing that matches the pattern of the solution. And I would tell people
now artificial intelligence can do that.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't need to learn
artificially. Actually,
yeah, but probably it does more than those general people that don't think, or however we'd like to call them. Sometimes I prefer. Sometimes in some cases I prefer to talk to this AI than to some certain people, but not as a general rule. I need to tell you that I over the years of yes, I'm younger than you, but over the years of being libertarian activist, I kind of again subconsciously follow the vision of Ayn Rand. I just care less about these societal problems or whether majority of people think or do not think. I don't think anything else than Bitcoin could change it as of today. Internet didn't teach people how to search for the truth, how to exchange information, how to just live better. Maybe yeah, it did for many people, and it's of course internet brought lots of development, but it didn't become what like early libertarians were hoping internet would bring, that it would it decentralizes this media. We have WikiLeaks, we have Nostr, but not for general people. They will be general people anyway, whatever tools we have. And whatever we do, whether we are doing soccer tournaments or some movie festivals, I don't do them also for just general people. I do it for people like you and me, and
Yeah.
for myself, for my own pleasure. Yeah, it can have a positive impact on society, maybe as a side effect, but it's not a primary goal for me anymore.
Come let's circle back around and close this because we're over an hour now. Do you got anything that's coming from Alby that you guys are excited about that you're willing to say this will happen someday soon?
We've been launching recent months a lot, so when we are a small team, it's not that easy to launch everything big and every few months. So we need to also maintain what we have, and these things had preparations. We recently launched Bitcoin Connect at Bitcoin. What is it in English? BitcoinConnect.com. You can check out. It's our new proposed way to very easily implement Bitcoin payments on a web, on apps, and on native apps and on web apps. It's for developers, not for end users, but end users also will have the more wallets and the more startups will be using that standard. And they already do. Some of the nice platforms already do. We believe the innovation of Bitcoin will be even easier. Same we do with Nostro Wallet Connect. That's our standard that maybe end user, like majority of listeners, naturally is not will not see because they are not developing, but they would see eventually when these various maps, Wazes on Nostr will be built because of the tools we developed at Alby. Then hopefully we will see a lot of big things. But I don't think about anything major that we will launch soon. Nothing I could. Yeah, we have few ideas, but nothing I can promise. I can only ask you guys to follow GetAlby on Twitter, Nostr, and let us know what you think of this product. Maybe you have some ideas what features we should implement, because as I mentioned, like this ecosystem is young, it's very evolving quickly in directions that no one expected probably exactly where this would be, and we don't know also what will happen in next 6 months, how regulators could maybe crumple on us on such companies, or maybe what new innovation could, or new problem somewhere could bring adoption and more Nost users. So we are also evolving, and we are trying to evolve with the community support. Join us, follow us, use Alby, GetAlby. Recently we had to kind of hide new registrations behind invites, and it has strategic reasons, so we could focus on building and providing good tools and prepare the hive. And the infrastructure has to be ready for that many people that are willing to use Alby. But I'm inviting all of your listeners, if you guys need an invite code and you don't have Alby yet account, please message Jack or ask in comments. I will visit that soon, and we will make sure that you get your invite codes. So thank you, Jack, for this conversation. Thank you guys for comments. It was a nice evening for me.
Well, thank you for being with us. I will let people know I do have a handful of invite codes. The folks at Alby have been good enough, as I told them out, to give me more. I'm wondering how many I will have access to, depending on how heavy this show hits. Because the audio side will get like 100,000 downloads. So we'll see how that goes. Though I would think a lot of the people that are in this space are already Alby users, because I've been promoting it for such a long time.
Really? You're having 100,000 users?
Yeah.
Listeners on episode.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I should have dressed, but it's video is only on YouTube, right?
And that's only because, believe it or not, like my least popular shows are Bitcoin shows. Like some of my other shows will get 200,000 downloads. So it's
all right. So maybe I should spell my Twitter more properly. It's Tomek K. It's not just it's Tomek K, but it's actually ITSTOMEK. It's Tomek K.
I've got, so in the audio notes for the show, I have all your links and all of Alby's links and the Bitcoin Film Fest page. I've got all that in the audio notes. So if anybody wants to connect with Tomek or any of these other resources, just go to the survivalpodcast.com and pull up episode 3439, which if you're listening to it anytime soon is today. If it's in the future, you can go back and find it. And dude, I appreciate you being with us today, man. This was a fun interview.
Me as well. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Jack. It was a very good conversation. Come to Poland, guys, anytime. It's Tomek K on various platforms, and we are doing this halving party in April and Bitcoin Film Fest. And if you want to come over and meet some fellow Bitcoiners or libertarians, hit me up. I'm well connected over here, and we'll be happy to show you around.
And as someone that grew up in a Ukrainian family in Pennsylvania, I say go for the food, right? Like, if nothing else.
Oh, as someone who grew up here, I wouldn't tell you that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in a part of Pennsylvania. It was very Slovakian. And so, like, you know, we had a lot of Polish, we had a lot of Ukraine, Lithuanians. It was weird. We had like all these Slovakians, and then we had Irish. It was like, and it was like a thing. Like, it wasn't an adverse thing, but like, you knew, like in high school, like I went to a high school where I graduated with a class of like 200 people. So it wasn't a very big school. And like, everybody knew who everybody, like, he's Polish, he's Lithuanian, he's Georgian. But we were all Americans, really. It was like our grandparents that actually spoke like native tongues and stuff. But it was a weird eclectic mix, and food, all the food's fantastic. Luskis and Lookies and all of it.
I'm probably too much used to it.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's how it is. Like, you're spoiled. You don't know.
Europe is also, it's different in this regard. That here we can drive, 600 miles and drive through 5 different languages and 7 different kitchens.
That's true, man. Well, again, man, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Bye now. All right, folks, real quick before we wrap up, I want to remind you, if you like this show and the work that we do, you can help support our efforts by doing your online shopping where? Well, just begin that at tspaz.com. If you start your online shopping at tspaz.com, you help us out no matter what it is that you eventually buy. Today's item of the day, I thought I had pulled up, and I don't, so I'm pulling it up right now for those on the video. But it is, well, it's a boring thing. It's a little 1.5 quart slow cooker. And I use this because I am so meat-centric in my diet. And it allows me to like take leftovers and toss them in. I give a whole write-up on this little gadget here as to ways to creatively use it. Those of you that still work in an office where you have to go in and you have lunch and all, man, this is a great way to eat better than the crap they serve you at your cafeteria or in your break room or whatever. Check it out. I brought it up today because it's like 25% off on sale. So check that out. But remember, everything at tspaz.com. I own it. I buy it again, or I do not recommend it to you. And that's my item of the day for you guys today. Want to remind you also, I do still have the bioreactor compost course available for sale. That's available at homefoodssystems.com. We've had over 100 students enroll in January since we launched it the second week of January. And we haven't had a single complaint yet. And we've had some pretty good feedback on it. So it's totally worth checking out. If you want to feed yourself, then you really need to learn about biology over chemistry in your backyard. And that's what the foundation of this course is. I'll let you know, we're also very close to releasing another course there. This one will be free to get people to try it out. And it's going to be on principle-based permaculture design. It's a 5-chapter course, and I just wrapped up chapter 4 and got it over to Tom today. So I've got one more chapter to do. Then Tom's got to work his back-end magic because I don't know how any of it works. And once that's available, we'll open that for registration. So if you've been thinking about taking a course and you're like, I don't know, and it's only $40, guys. But if you don't know, take a free one. Get a feel for what it's like. The educational platform that we're building there, we're designing it to teach people to produce food in their own backyard. I think that very much fits the ethos of Bitcoin and the culture of Bitcoin, and that independence is really the most important thing. If you're not independent, then you're dependent. It's one of the two things. That's all you get to do is choose one of those two sides. And when it comes to things like my money and my food and my associations and my communications, I don't want to be dependent on anybody. Anyway, with that, I will catch you guys tomorrow. It's a Thursday, so we have an expert council Q&A. That means it will not be live stream, won't be a video version of it because those guys are all over the place and it's pre-done. And then Friday we'll have a flashback, and the next week we'll do it all again. So next live stream will be Monday, unless something pops up. You never know. So get on our Telegram channel or group, because that's the one place you can be sure that, you know, I'm not shadow banned or whatever. You'll see it. And it's just like text messages that you control from me or from the whole community. Your choice. You can learn more about all this stuff. Just go to the survivalpodcast.com, click on Get Social to stay connected with us. Take care, guys. Have a great day.